For anybody that is not familiar with the term red pill or blue pill or black pill, these are slang terms in modern day time that are referencing people's personal preferences or frames of reality. So it's a reference to Matrix, in the Matrix movie, where Morpheus hands Neo, who is the main protagonist, hands Neo the option to weigh the red pill or the blue pill. The blue pill allows him to go back into the Matrix as if he never experienced the truth, and he just goes back to day-to-day life, living away just to die. Or he can take the red pill and he sees how far the rabbit hole goes. What I think a lot of and the black pill is not necessarily in the Matrix, but the black pill in slang terms nowadays is an existentialist and nihilistic point of view in which indicates that the world has little to no meaning and there's a lot of apathy in the world. I don't want anybody to take any of these kinds of pills, so to speak, right? These metaphorical pills that regard reality in so far as whatever kind of way it is. What I'm going to talk about in this video is why you need to ignore these things and just follow Christ and follow Jesus. This may sound, at face value, it may sound like a hint of, I would say, pontification or sophistry in some way, but that is not my intention. My intention is to bring reality back to itself. And that is to show you who you are, to really show you what you're made of. We do not need any of these kinds of pills because our identity is not enveloped into a certain frame of ideology or dogmatism or anything of religious, anything religious either. Your identity is who God made you to be. It's really as simple as that. And there is not any less meaningful experience that you can have than to be a part of a pathology without even knowing it, or to be a part of a dogmatism without even knowing it. And I know this because I once was a part of ideologies, and I once was a part of pathologies in high school and in college, my early years of college. By the time I was a junior and senior in college, I started to realize how perverse the culture of the university really was, and how maddening the situation really is at hand. And it was more so that I realized what's wrong with the blue pill, what's wrong with the red pill, and what's wrong with the black pill. And this is simply my perspective. I'm not stating anything to be final here in this video, but this is going to be a firm, steadfast perspective of what I see as what's going on. So my critique with the red pill, and I'm going to start with the red pill because a lot of males specifically may be following the red pill content on YouTube or anything like that, or other social media platforms. And don't get me wrong, I've learned a lot of great things from the red pill. I learned a lot of valuable insights from people and from content creators in the red pill, specifically on game and natural selection and female nature as well. Hypergamy, of course, all of those words. But my biggest critique now with the red pill is that there's been a cause for division, so much so between the sexes that it almost seems to me that there's little to no possibility for unifying each other with the red pill. My critique with the blue pill, now the blue pillars are basically ignorant. They are the ones stuck in the matrix and don't even know it. And for all intents and purposes in this video, the blue pillars are the feminists, the ones that are stuck in dogmatism. They are the ones that are all about the climate change this and feminist that and abortion this and all those great things, right, that the blue pillars have to say. What my biggest critique with them is that they don't adhere to sensible practicalities. And then the black pillars are the basic nihilistic existentialists. My biggest critique with them is that they do not understand the value of responsibility and simplicity. Responsibility and simplicity is found to be the meaning of life, as far as I can tell, and that is where Christ comes into play. Jesus is actually very simple. Following Jesus is actually very simple. There are only 10 rules, right? The 10 commandments. There are only 10 commandments to follow. Seems pretty simple, right? At first glance. But the actual walking with Christ and the actual following Christ is the hard part. And there are too many Christians out there that claim to be Christian and yet act in a way that does not adhere to the principles or the true values of what Christ was teaching. Now, again, I do not consider myself a quote-unquote Christian. I don't even go to church. And the reason for that is because church to me, and I'm not sure if it's just the area in which I live or whatever, but every church that I've gone to, it's a matriarchal structure internally. And the men are following around the women, and the women are the bosses, and even at the grocery stores or at the coffee shops here, or even at the gym, you see men following around women, or the men lifting advice from women, and that don't even look like they can lift. Like it's bonkers. It's really just bonkers to me. And I'm not saying that women can't provide these kinds of values. Like, I'm not saying that women can't be leaders in their own right. But women are not meant to lead men. And a lot of people may be triggered by that, but I don't want to, how do I say this? I'm just going to ruffle some feathers here for some people, and it is going to be what it is going to be. So, in the Corinthians, it says that Christ is the head of man, man is the head of the woman, and then the woman is the head of the children. Why is this the case? Why is this so? Well, it's not just religiously. It's biologically. Every single time I've taken the lead in the relationship with a woman, I've had a more dominant attitude toward the woman. Not only does she get turned on, but she is far more cooperative with me. And when I set proper boundaries and when I set things, the women that are actually decent women respond very well to those boundaries. And they like it because they feel safe. A lot of the blue-pilled women out there that are feminists, that are the boss babes, that claim to be these things, are not ever going to admit this, but they do want that dominant male. However, the male has to have competence. The male has to have some kind of form of confidence. If he does not have these things, it's going to be very difficult for him to have the respect required in order for the woman to stay with him. Well, why is this? It's because women are, they love opportunistically, right? So, and men do not. Men can love a woman no matter what kind of social status she is, no matter what kind of economical status she is, whereas the woman, and this has been true for me, it's absolutely crazy how much attention I'm getting from women now, considering I'm not even very, like, I'm not like elite in regard to how much money I'm making or my social status or anything like that, but I do have a little bit of clout. I do have a bit of influence in my community, and I do have a certain sense of power that has been granted unto me by spiritual authority, that has been granted unto me by God. Because any kind of spiritual authority that we have is granted to us by God. And I was on a call with a woman a little bit ago on a consultation, and we talked about a verse in the Bible, specifically that Jesus is confronted by the Pharisees, who are at the time the religious teachers. But they are kind of hypocrites, which are most religious people now, as far as I can tell. And a lot of the times these religious people are actually blue-pilled. They're not actually red-pilled or anything like that. They're stuck in a false sense of reality. Well, so in this Bible verse that I was discussing, it's where Jesus is confronted by the Pharisees, and they ask him if the like, where does he get his authority from? And Jesus says, well, the baptism of John, for me, John the Baptist, the baptism, was it of heaven or was it of earth? And the Pharisees say, well, I'm paraphrasing here. The Pharisees basically say, well, if we say heaven, then we actually say that Jesus is the Son of God. But if we say earth, then we discount John the Baptist, who is a legitimate prophet of God at the time. Everybody claimed that John was a prophet. And so they said neither. And Jesus says, well, neither do I tell you where I get my spiritual authority. And that was a moment in which Jesus, for me, he said everything he needed to say, as far as I'm concerned. And that's one of the reasons why I feel okay to follow Christ. And that's one of the reasons why I feel more comfortable, even though it's not comfortable, following Christ than any person or anything or any religion or any kind of dogma otherwise. Because I've never felt more filled up in my life than I do following Jesus. I've never felt more spiritually, financially, physically, and emotionally healthy than I've ever done in my life, apart from now, when I'm following Christ. And I've noticed that even when I steer off the path just a little bit, even just a tidge, that's when things start to really shift in a moderately terrible direction really quickly. And it's almost like God is telling me that pure obedience is necessary if you want to be a vessel for the ancestral father. And what that ancestral father is God, is Christ himself. It's not only the people in all of your ancestral line, it's God himself. And that's the best way to think about it as a man. And so a lot of the times when women lead in the relationships, steering back now, when women lead in the relationships, what happens is they actually tend to resent the men that they're with. And I've seen this time and time again. I've seen it time and time again. And I can't tell you how many times where I've seen this happen and the men just don't even do anything about it. It's just really hard for me to look at you as another man and see that you claim to follow Jesus and yet you do not even lead your own family. How can you possibly claim such a thing? You are, at that point, just another ideology. You're not even an individual. You're a pathological vessel, and you are an ideological vessel. And so it's not really pleasant for me to see so many men out here, these modern men, that claim to be traditional. It's almost like it's just as bad as the modern women claiming to be traditional. Because the modern women that claim to be traditional and then end up to be hoes, it's like, what are you actually saying? Like, what do you really have to offer me apart from sex and money? What do you have to offer me? And in a similar way, it's almost like saying to the man, like, what do you have to offer me? Like, a man is not going to be chosen by a woman unless he has something of value to offer. And this is the thing that I don't understand. Like, for me personally, I praise God that I'm spiritually rich. That has gotten me very far in life already. And if it wasn't for God granting me this wisdom through all of the experiences that I've been through, I don't really know where I would be at, to be honest. But everybody has their own unique skill and perspective that they can bring to the table. Everybody has their different kinds of gifts. And so many men are giving it up to sports, to video games, to whatever it is. And they're not even playing it. They're just watching somebody else do it. Hell, I even saw on Twitter, or X, I guess we could say now, X. I saw on X, and I don't use it. I only have it for my business, Regal Change. But I saw on it that there was a stream of Nicki Minaj and some other guy I've never heard of. And like 1 million people were watching it and giving her money, like on Twitch or whatever. Like, who has time to, like, how many millions of people have time to watch her and this random guy? I don't know if it's this. I don't know who this guy was. So maybe he's some celebrity that I just don't know. But some guy and Nicki Minaj just do their thing on a stream. Like, they're not even doing anything. They were just sitting there talking. And you guys are paying for this. This is the blue pill that just makes me infuriated, to be honest. I don't know what else to say to the blue pillars other than that I actually don't think there's anything to say to these blue pillars. They're so caught up in the ideology that it's almost like trying to shake them awake. You can pour a glass, or you can pour like a bucket of cold water on them. You can try to shake them, and yet they're still asleep. Like, they're still asleep. It's like, well, what do you do to wake these people up that just are staying asleep? You can't do much. But with the red pill as well, it's so I think the red pill is just too much focused on dividing through female nature that they're not really looking at the value of female nature and how they can use it to their advantage. And I'm not saying we're going to use women. I'm saying that we're going to understand women so that we can both, as men and women, understand each other. Because when a woman understands a man's language is direct and a man understands that a woman's language is covert, they'll be able to be compatible because they both understand each other and they're both willing to work on the relationship. And that's ultimately what we want to do here. We want to empower people to prosper physically, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. And you can do those things by following Christ alone. And with that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. And until next time, peace be with you.